Hello.
كم واحد فيه؟
Nice to see you. Are you well, my friend? Good.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Nice to see you. Lovely.
You too.
Sorry, we're a few minutes late this evening. Sorry. Okay. Anything in particular for you guys, or are we okay?
Everything is okay.
All right. Okay. Well, I will just.
I have, of course.
Well, a question.
Of course.
Okay. Well, let me. Okay. 1 second. And yeah, please go ahead.
On Thursday, we were talking about the cook jarns, and a question that I had just to kind of follow up. In our cook jarns, is there a way to? What would a cook jarn look like in application? When I'm bringing, and what I'm really thinking about is this backhand, right? So if I'm using that cook jarn in application, this hand's not going to clap against my guard hand. Is that guard hand just going to kind of stay there with it? So when we're obviously training the cook jarns, we're bringing that all the way down and slapping it into our sternum. So where's that guard hand going to be? Am I going to keep that prepared for a lap sow?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. I like to be relaxed in my approach and in my answers, and not because of any lack of knowledge. Quite the opposite. I'm trying to not kind of flood you with information. Sometimes it's not that kind of relevant to give such precision. So without being too flippant, when you said first, you said, what's the application of that, or what's the angle? How would that be used in reality? You know, it's kind of just put it in. Just, you know, if you are in a position where you're so close and you have a contact, then we would drive from here. It might be downward, might even have an upward, anything at all. It's just knowing your range and your weapon of choice, what's available to you. It might even be a headbutt, could be your teeth. You know, you might be biting, who cares? The reality of application can be a lot less attractive and beautiful and pretty than when we train it. To give you a better answer with that, I find it always, again, it's the teaching principle that I'll try and use, is to look at extremes. Let's do something as relaxed and precise as we can do it. Let's use this sort of incredible amount of power and force, and then we find this balance in between. And that's really what we're looking at when we're when we're looking at cook jams in this application. This is worth remembering. We are training two very separate elbows, two very separate techniques. So when I'm going forwards with the cup jan, thinking of this one has nothing to do with it at all. Absolutely nothing to do with it. For me to drive power into a position, there's nothing wrong with me applying the power here and then stopping there, because what is energy? How, you know, it's that thing, how do we describe it? You know, in physics, in its basic term, mass times velocity equals momentum. So, you know, this is for anyone watching on catch up, because you guys know, I think. So this is the mass, whoosh, that's the velocity, that equals momentum. Energy is equal to change in rate of momentum. So the idea is that how quickly I stop. And that's that thing of, you know, if I jump off a chair and I land, I will bend my knees, therefore I don't get hurt. If I jump off a chair and land with my legs locked, I'm going to get hurt because I was moving and then all of a sudden I'm not moving. When we have this driving through, like you kind of karate punch, let's say, that idea of you driving with the hip and you're driving through, of course, if it hits, it's going to do damage. That's fine. I won't be disrespectful. However, what we can look at this in a sense of physics is that this becomes a monodirectional force and almost a glorified fast push. because I create the momentum, I make the contact, and I continue through. If I go to hit somebody, in reality, nothing before that contact is going to hurt you, no matter how much I tense and scream. After the contact, if I push you back, it may look quite dramatic and it'll push you over some tables and chairs, but that's not going to create any more damage than the contact. So anything before, anything after is irrelevant. When we make contact, there's a transition. If I make contact, remember the punches, 3 types of punches. Number 1, I can push through. Okay, if you hit on the jaw, bone against bone, you'll get that sudden movement, that sudden jarring. Your brain is just floating around in there in cerebral fluid. Depending on where it hits on the inside of the skull is going to depend on the different action that happens to you. If it's going to be your speech or your sight, or if it's going to be the right side of your body or the left side of your body, because they work the opposite side. You know, so sometimes you bump your head and it's like you feel dizzy, or it's, are you okay? Are you okay? Oh, and you can't speak. So depending on where it hits gives that different outcome. The danger with this is that we need force in order to push through and make that contact. And if it makes a contact and goes through, excellent. If it doesn't, you can put yourself in a very awkward position. And this is that monodirectional muscular force, which then overcommits. So driving through, punch number 1, application of energy number 1, or power or force number 1, let's rule that out. So we know then that I don't want to push you away. Also, thinking that if I'm in a situation where you're in danger, somebody is they're going to attack. You know, they've got 4 limbs. You know, you could either kick, either punch. 5 if you're going to think, well, a headbutt as well. You know, anything that's coming in. If you're lucky enough to then gain that contact, or successful, I should say, in gaining that contact, we need to control that contact and control that person and feel, which we would play through Chi Sao and similar exercises, drills, games, Pak Sao, Lap Sao, sensitivity work, Dan Chi, lots of things we can do within that. What I wouldn't then want to do is, if I'm being successful in blocking, to then punch with such force and drive and overcommitment that I then push that threat away from me again, which, unless I've got that amazing knockout on that first strike, which we would never ever assume, always, if that happens, fine, you know, it's been an easy ride for you, but never assume that's going to happen. Then what I've just done is I've just pushed that person away, so now they can come back at me, knowing that I have some skill, I've got some ability, I'm not, you know, that there's, and so therefore it's going to be an even more difficult task for me. So I don't want to push them away, I want to keep them. Second type of punch, then I apply power and I stop on contact. That's great, but if I remain tense, then I share some of that impact. You know, this is the thing of board breaking that I've talked about before. If you drive through when you're punching boards, that's great. If you don't, certainly in karate, where you use like these 2 knuckles and get the bone in alignment and drive from the hip and through. If you go through the board, great. If you don't, you could break your wrist. And it's not the impact that breaks your bone, it's the vibration, the tremor that comes back afterwards. So I hit, power, tension, I remain strong, locked, this comes back, and that's what does the damage. So we then look at a third type of power, where I will be as relaxed as possible, which means that my punch will get there very quickly with no resistance. I apply power on contact, and as soon as I use it, lose it, and it's gone. That means nothing has gone this way to push you back. Anything that comes back against me, these are like shock absorbers, so I remain safe. I have the strength of structure through this triangulation, so I've got power behind it. I've applied power internally to that shape in the same way as me jamming a Pak Sao, and I've switched off quickly enough, meaning that I can then do that again and again and again and again. So there are your 3 types of punches: drive through, hold the tension, hit and relax, and then hit and relax again and again and again. So that's how we would punch. So I started that by talking about how we in very basic physics would describe energy, and that is moving and then suddenly not moving. For me to do this myself in a cup jar, I can use this here, power, here, power. That is not the easiest thing to practice, to train, you know, so that's the reason why we allow ourselves this. So we can gain a clarity of it, like if you're writing a sentence, it's a full stop. You know, if you're landing an aircraft, you want to look for like your touchdown point. If you're going to brake, you know where your stopping distance needs to be. It's a marker. It helps us this way to get the marker to put that in. And it also teaches us that feeling. You see, when you do this, it's very difficult for you to do this and then have that continue on that same path. It won't do it. It helps you to stop. And so what we're not striking ourselves here. We're making a contact. That's it. I'm not trying to hurt myself. So I stop at that point. My thought, my feeling, my drive is on the elbow. So what I'm training there, almost without knowing, is to create the momentum and then to stop at that certain point. The very fact of me moving and then suddenly not moving means I've just applied energy within that technique. So that's just training one cup jar, because that I will practice stopping against something. That something in training is me, here, here. In reality, it might be here. So I'm going to hit at that point. Wherever it is where I will apply it. So as soon as I might be, maybe my target's here, I'm moving down, I get to it, bang. If it's here, bang. If it was earlier, bang, wherever. So wherever I feel that contact is about to be applied. Hopefully we're going to meet, you know, and this is an incredible thing to feel. And if you want to try this with your own students, what you can do is place your forearm against their chest. Ask someone to volunteer for this. Tell them, of course, in advance what you're going to do, what we're going to try. And place your forearm against their chest. And then it's almost like, again, I'll use this same reference of jamming the packs out. So at this point, I'm simply going to tense up. I'm going to give that little punch of my elbow. I'm going to give a little movement because it is a driving force. But I'm going to use my forearm here to just tense, and you'll feel this kind of take their breath away. And this is from a touch. I'm talking about being flush, my arm fully in contact with your chest, and then from here, power, a little punch of energy. If we then consider that added to the momentum and the whole thing meets, we then start to see, okay, yeah, I'm seeing where the power is here. So what we need to do is remember, this is the cup jar. That's what I'm training. That's what I'm training. So the hand touching my body is giving me two clear defining elements here. It's showing me where to stop at this point, because I'm not going to do that and then continue. It's simply not going to feel right at all. The second thing is, by stopping, I'm unknowingly allowing myself to train the energy of movement, then no movement. And it's just, so the power element, I kind of would, a karate punch is a little bit like, if I'm using that as that phrase, if you imagine a car hitting another car and its handbrake is off, then it would hit, it's parked, handbrake is off, hits 30 miles an hour, 30, 20, 10, stop. 30, 20, 10, stop. If the handbrake is on, we get 30, stop. So the impact is greater, a little bit like driving through some bales of hay or through some bushes or driving straight into a wall. So again, the application of energy is how quickly we stop. So I don't really want to hit and overly try and push through. I will be moving in a little bit, but my intention is the same as a punch. I won't go through with the punch. I'll make the contact and move in a little bit with the power, and the shockwave of that will continue even deeper. So that's the thing. It's like, it's the feel of, you know, I've said before of energy is multidirectional, like sound. to see this, to visualize this, is just dropping a pebble in a pond, isn't it? And we'll see the ripples just go all directions. It spreads out. That's the same with this. So, and while I'm on that, I'm gonna add a little bit more, if I may. I just talked about driving in with the punch a little bit, or the elbow a little bit. I kind of want to give some clarity to this, because let's say this is my chest and this is my back. So I'm kind of going to pretend that I'm here. It's easier if I kind of stand sideways. When the punch comes in, we don't actually just stop there on the chest and expect the energy to continue all the way in. We likewise don't, in karate, punch through to the back, because that then will move me that same distance away. So I'm not trying to hit and push me back. So how far do we move in? The ultimate focus point is going to be this center. So when the punch comes in, I'll make contact on the chest. I'm going to drive in a little bit, probably about halfway, let's say, maybe even. And the shock, sorry, I got a sore throat tonight. And the shock wave will continue to that central point, which means that might seem like quite a lot. Chest, back, center, punch and shockwave, punch and shockwave. But when we look at this from the side, you realize that that punch is only going in that. It's only going in a little bit when the shockwave then continues. So, but I've had this before where somebody has been a little bit confused by this, almost expecting that if they punch my shirt, that the energy will magically and mystically continue through, you know, and oh, perhaps this is what that, you know, when we see these strange demonstrations where somebody's in another room and boom, and then everyone falls over, and you think, oh, okay, maybe not, you know, yeah, I'm not going to get into that now, but I think that's possibly where somebody's imagination has gone a little bit too far. It is a strike, it is a punch. We will need to go in, but how far in? If I push through to the back, that will move me away. So I'm going to hit in a little bit, and it continues in further with the shockwave. Very easy to see that in the elbow strike. So as I say, the elbow strike is this. Then we get onto something else. Then we get onto this as a separate entity. And this can be used a little bit like when we are second section, Sulam Tao. Master Yip Chun refers to this as training energy in all directions, you know, from in front and behind and the sides. If somebody's taking your arm up your back, then we have our gate, 1, 2, 3. So if I punch and somebody punches and I block with the Tan Sao, this is my first gate. They pull this down, I use my second gate. They pull this down, I use my third gate to defend. In the same way as if I strike, I use my first gate. I get closer, my second gate, closer still, my third gate. If somebody's taking my arm up my back, they are holding gates 1 and 2. So they are committed. They've got both arms locked in on me. Puts me in a bad position. Sounds it anyway. But if we turn the tables, if we change the mentality and think, well, they've just given 2 arms on 1. So from this point, I can then use striking down to slip and the shoulder barge to strike. So this is me using it this way. A consideration that you may not have given to your application in second section of Sulam Tao is, we're looking at this. Okay, that position, we can see where somebody's maybe taking your arm and we slip down. We slip down. But what about when we lift up? The action of lifting up is like that of a bear hug. So what I'm trying to do is not lift necessarily my hands, although when I do move around here, what I'm trying to do is to strike for the groin, not the testicles. The groin is kind of 2 inches below the navel and 2 inches across. So that's what we're looking at here. So in this case, I'm not using both arms either. I'm going to try and use one arm to just apply a little bit of power to try and release that grip. Another way we might look at this is not to the first gate, but of the second gate. So again, from here, if I try and, my arms are pinned, someone's got me in a hug, I'm going to try and bring my hands around a little bit. And all I'm thinking of is when I lift, look what my elbows do. So my elbows lift they also go back just slowly. You know, we've got our hands facing down. This is okay. Then we lift. Absolutely fine. Just lift slowly. Yep, great. Ibrahim, we'll see this in a moment. So lifting up, that's fine. If my hands were around here and someone's got me in that bear hug, I'm trying to use that power, that punch. Boom, here, small, sharp, little pull back. That's going to, yes, that's going to generate the force. Why? Because I've trained it on its retraction. And remember what I said on Thursday, on the last one, I said, when we go forwards, don't be reliant on the momentum in order to generate that. Again, energy is equal to changing rate of momentum. Oh, okay, I understand. So therefore, we need to create momentum in order to be able to change it. That makes sense. So I need something to draw back. Okay, perhaps, but how much? This is your big momentum. The whole essence of explosive energy, or inch power, as it's sometimes referred to, is what we're training here. I'm just using that movement, very small, hardly noticeable. It certainly doesn't need a retraction before it moves into it. We don't go forward to generate the power back. When we punch, we don't pull back in order to generate the power forward. We apply it from the touch, from where we are. And that's why on Thursday, I said, really, when we do this, take your time to go through this. Even if I'm bringing it from an already elbow, I'm going to bring this all the way around and then apply the power. Round, then apply the power. Almost like a real separate consideration. It's very easy for us to get into this momentum and this reliance. And when we do that, we start to get more physical than we need to be, rather than focusing on this connection with this kind of spasmodic reaction and the fast twitch fibers and the smaller muscle groups. This is what we're reliant on. We're not going for the bigger muscle groups in order to generate the power. We're using all of the tiny muscle groups and the fast twitch fibers to generate that explosive power. And well, what do you mean by explosive power? So that's why initially we learn the path and the journey to understand what it is that we're finally getting to. Nick, I hope that's good. And yeah, I knew you'd be in. Can see you. You're itching there, itching. Go.
So I've never thought of this. So this is really, really good, right? I guess something to add, right? So there's so many things I want to say. Okay, so I'm not quite sure I want to use.
You look like I do now. This is great. It's good to see.
I'm not quite sure I want to use the whole idea of the 1-inch punch, but it seems to fit the description best, right? I can feel that idea of the 1-inch punch, but it's now also being able to replicate that in the elbows, in the gum sounds, and I do believe you have said at one point in time, right? So we don't want to practice this on a wall bag, because that energy, we'll be sharing that energy and that'll be coming back to us, possibly creating injury. A hanging bag, a heavy bag might be more suitable. Any other ideas to think about thinking of this? Because I've never thought of that application in the elbows, because I've just been doing the cup jarns, right, and not thinking about that delivering that energy at that same distance. So yeah, this is really, really great.
Yeah, if I may jump in on that point, you're quite right. Wall bags, the main thing about wall bags is that it's a bag and it's on a wall, clue in the title, but the idea being that it teaches you to know when to stop, and that's the whole point. If we, the first punch that I mentioned, this idea of driving through, this is the easiest thing for us to kind of visit our local gym and see a hanging bag, and then you think, hey, I'm going to try my Wing Chun punch on that, and it not move, you know, and it's kind of, people look, it's laughable. So what? They don't know what you're training. It's very different when that bag has got internal organs and bones and cartilage and things that get damaged. This hasn't, you know, it's filled with whatever, you know, rags, sand, I don't know, I don't care. But the idea is if you don't move that bag and then you get frustrated and think, I look silly, I'm going to get it and move it, get the bag swinging, I'm going to hit, you're teaching yourself a bad thing. That's why on the wall bag, when we hit, we apply the power, we stop. If I don't stop on the wall doesn't move, I do. So this is the easiest thing. You feel yourself being pushed back. So you drop in your stance and you apply the power and switch off. And this is where we can train ourselves. Do you remember the additional thing as well? What tends to happen with this, a tiny little side note, which is always worth remembering, is that if I think I want to train some power today, so I hit the bag as hard as I can, 100%. There's a good chance that you're probably going to be lingering at like 30%. You remember this one, yeah. So you're hitting the bag at 100% and you're lingering at 30, which means your next punches are actually going at 70% and you're probably lingering at 40 and so on. And what happens is that we then start to feel like I'm being stronger, but I feel like my punches are weaker. And so we get stronger and stronger. We put more and more in. And what happens, of course, is that we're topping up the energy with muscle. Then we start to kind of lean back. We're falling into it. We're doing everything wrong. It's all going terribly wrong. What's the phrase I'm always using? Never sacrifice technique for speed or power. So do a couple of these punches. If you hit it hard and you feel that lingering at 70 or maybe lingering at 30 or maybe 20. So you feel that the next one is only 70 or 80%. What we need to do is hit the bag less. So I'm going to hit the wall bag at 70% of what I believe I could achieve, with my goal, my aim being that as soon as I hit it, I go switching off completely, power and off. And then we gradually reintroduce that power in increments. We'll then go like 75 or 80% and be lingering at 5 or 10. And we keep doing that until we get that 5 or 10 down to what we feel as good as 0. You know, let's not take it literally again. And then we go up to 90%. We're putting more power in. But again, we feel like the 10%, 5% lingering. So we do that again until we get that relaxation. And so, you know, quite often in our training, we have to take one step back in order to make 3 forwards. But, you know, if we don't do that, if we think, I'm not going back, I'm not doing Danchi Sa, I'm not doing Sulam Tao, I'm not doing this stuff. What you are doing is creating yourself a ceiling level, and that's it. And you will never go beyond that. This is the thing. I love that thing. Confucius, I believe it was, that said, the man who claims to know everything is a fool, for his learning has ceased. You know, so learn from everybody. Never stop learning. Never stop training. Never stop revisiting the basics, because they're fabulous, and they've got so much little hidden treasures that you guarantee you did not see the first, second, or 50th time around. To be guided by your basics, absolutely not. That's dreadful. We need to make sure it works for you. So that's how and why we use a wall bag. Punches. You're quite right. With the elbows, if I do elbow strikes on a wall bag, then that impact is going to go directly onto my spine. Do you remember I said of the 3 punches, we have the driving through, then we hit and we maintain. And I said we share the impact and the broken bone, that kind of thing. And the third one is we hit and we switch off. And I said these become like shock absorbers. When we hit with the elbow, there's no room left for shock absorbers. So on a wall bag, the impact would go directly onto your spine. So we avoid that. A hanging bag, have fun. Get the bag swinging. Swing it away, and when it comes back, boom, stop it. Push it away. When it comes back, stop it. So this is a great way of training. This is fine. Also on the wall bag, you can train your aggressive kicks. So you're going to kick. The difference between aggressive and passive, aggressive, I'm going to it. So I'm going to just kick, bang, I'm going to power, bang, every time, apply the power. And again, not kicking and pushing myself back. The passive is where I'm going to use a stopping kick or lifting kick. And again, I'll get the bag, I'll swing the bag away, and as it comes back, stop it. So I'll get the bag, push it away, and it comes back, stop. So this is the idea. When I kick, I stop the bag. I don't try and overpower it. I don't let it bounce me backwards. So wall bag is for kicks and punches, aggressive kicks. A hanging bag is for elbow strikes and stopping kicks. Nick, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and developing these techniques, it's a whole different technique, right? So trying to get to zero in our punches doesn't mean that we're going to understand getting to zero in the elbows or getting to zero in the kicks. We have to train them separately and go through the same process, because I just use my elbow and apply some energy and I feel it linger.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's a different. We need to remember as well that the elbow strike is a different animal, and this is another consideration. Mun Sao and Fak Sao. Mun Sao is actually a very un-Wing Chun kind of technique, because it creates the shape, maintains the shape throughout, and uses muscle from the shoulder and the back to swing through. The momentum is stopped by us, ideally again with the same principle as the elbow, as the cup jan. It would have met its contact here, but we're smashing through to that point. So we would have met our contact at this point. A Fak Sao doesn't use the shoulder and the back. It bends at the elbow, and he's not that strong. That's why we choose where we're using this, you know. So I'm not going to power through and chop somebody in half with a Fak Sao. Just give me 1 second. So it's not so powerful, this technique. I like to think of this like you used to get kind of arcade games or computer games where you would choose your character. You know, do you want to be like the powerful one with the big hammer, but he's slow, you know, and he can take out lots of characters every time? Or do you want to be the fast one with the bow and arrow? He's not as powerful, but he can fire lots of arrows. This is the powerful one, which is slower, telegraphed, overcommitted. And the idea is that when somebody grabs you here, I'm going to smash through. So again, very un-Wing Chun. The Fak Sao, this is the bow and arrow guy. This is when we're close and we already have a contact. Remember, Mun Sao means asking hand as well, meaning that we don't have a contact yet. So by the very principle, this is why when we have a guard, we have your Wu Sao, your guard hand, and we have your Mun Sao, your asking hand. I'm asking for a contact. So it's passive as my front hand. It's aggressive if I attack with it, because, and you could almost say, well, if I just punch you, that's Mun Sao, because it's the first contact, it's asking hand. If I hit, great. If you block it, we have contact and we're off, great. So it's a first bridge, that's Mun Sao. Or passive aggressive, where you've come in with a strike and maybe I've defended with this and counter attack. So I can either have this as a ready position, as a first attack, or as a counter attack. So this is a different way I might use Mun Sao. But Mun Sao is powerful. The Fak Sao is not. Nick, why were we on that? Just remind me, please. I had a reason for that. Ibrahim, what was it?
I was just talking about having to train them separately, because of the it's learning a whole new skill, whole new technique.
Yeah. Okay. I know Ibrahim wanted a question there as well. This is fine. I wanted. You're right in what you're saying. It is kind of, and I said it's a different animal, really. This one, and just like the Mun Sao, Cup Jan and Mun Sao, it's a different thing. Remember, when we learn any martial art, we learn it in 3 stages. We learn the shapes, then we learn to defend with those shapes, then we learn to counter attack. Anyone can hit. All right, you need to not get hit. And before that, you need to know what you're going to use in order to not get hit. So this is why we have the shapes. So remember when I was teaching the Cup Jan, we went through Buji through the elbows last week. What I said to you is we can have a tan, we can rotate the tan, because the contact between tan and bone is the wrist, the same distance away and still in center. And then when we understood the bone, I said, keep your elbow and let the hand collapse. And then without knowing it, hey presto, we're now in a Cup Jan position. So the first thing I did was to teach you the shapes. Then we moved with those shapes and how to get into them. And now what we're looking at is how to actually use this with its force, with its desired effect. For me to, if I just went straight in and said, we want lots of power with the elbow, put it in, your technique would be dreadful, because again, never sacrifice technique for speed or power. So the way that I'll try and teach, and through Wing Chun online, is what we do. we'll show the positions to get you comfortable with this, then how to move into that position, and then how to move in with the correct power. And that is a very simple build-up and a very simple way of doing it. Ibrahim, do you have a question now? Please go ahead. Oh, hang on, my friend. I need to get you to unmute.
Hello. I want to know the difference between Mansau and Faxau. And when I make Gansau from outside, I make the uppercut or from inside. If someone is hitting me like this, I make the Gansau after what I make uppercut or from inside.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll right, okay, I've just muted you. Well, again, you know, the simple answer is whatever is available, really. Now, just in that example, you turned when you turned with the gown. So whenever we, as a simple thing to remember, whenever we turn, how can I put it? If I turn, I gain a third extra reach, but it also means that I lose my backhand. This is why when we use turning punches, there's 3 points to remember. Number one, turn on the heels. Number two, that the punch is exactly the same principle as a normal punch in that we don't go around. I'm going to pull back and drive. And the third point is to make sure that your backhand is still level with the elbow in distance and height. And by being able to do that means that you are not going to be over committing. You're not kind of using a bow and arrow. You know, we're not going for this kind of thing. So looking at the positive of that when we turn, we have turned and gained a third extra reach. If you've turned with a high gown at this point, your best weapon or your weapon of choice is going to be the nearest arm. So the punch is fine. I wouldn't refer to it as an uppercut, though. It's basically just a normal punch, you know. And we talk about, this is an interesting thing. If we talk about uppercuts and hook punches and so on, well, and them not being in Wing Chun, it's kind of true, but it's also not. It's not quite right, because we need to, this is, again, this goes back to what I've just said about your basics, that understand them, drill them, but remember they're your blueprints, they're your default settings. And what we can do with these is that we can use our Wing Chun blueprints to map over any technique of any style to understand it with a Wing Chun mind. So the difference, the reason why we would say use that principle of others walk the bow, I walk the string. So we follow the shortest path between 2 points. The difference here, this is a hook punch that we wouldn't use in Wing Chun. And the reason for this is because of the path that my elbow is taking. But if I ended up turning with a bew and covered with a pack, and from here, even if it was this way, you know, so what? As long as my elbow and the principle of this is still following the shortest path between 2 points. If I change this path or go around this, this is not the shortest distance. So hitting here, what is so vastly different between us looking at our Paijans of Chum Kyu? You know, we know how to do Paijans. If I make a fist, have I not just done a very clear Paijan, hook punch? When we look at the, again, at the end of this as well, we drive upwards. What am I looking at here? If I turn the hand, it doesn't really matter as long as my elbow is following that direct path, that straight punch. So some of the things that we, you know, we don't have lifting elbows in this way. Well, of course we do. Chum Kyu, first move, when we draw in. You know, we get to this position and out. What's to stop me using this with some power, certainly from close in? You know, so everything is fair game in Wing Chun, as long as we use the principles of that. And this is the thing. I would say that nothing in Wing Chun is carved in stone, but there are certain guidelines and principles that we must listen to, we must refer to. That would be protecting center and not going off of it. And what I mean by that is, again, it depends, you know, if you're on the inside and I'm in a tussle here, then if I lift my elbow out, because then I can hit, that makes sense. But if I'm lifting my elbow out and leaving myself open for an elbow strike here, that's just silly, because you know not to do that. Chisao would have taught us to not leave these opportunities. Luksao Jit Kyun, lost hand straight punch. It's that principle. We're feeling, we're finding gaps, looking for opportunities. If the person is tight and I can't get in there and it's a grapple, step back. When they step in and follow me, you're always in danger when you're in transit. Maybe I could pull them in. Can I cover down and hit? Can I then, Nick, at this point, can I then come over with the elbow? Again, here's another elbow. Can I come around to hit? You know, like in section 3 of the 1 or 2 of the dummy, this kind of pulling, you know, this kind of getting on the inside and taking it this way. If somebody comes in with a hook punch and you end up blocking this with a bu and a strike, if the other hook punch comes around from here and I turn, I'm grabbing around the neck. So this, again, seems very un-Wing Chun. Let's not think of this journey of the path, this journey of the hand, this Jeng Sao kind of feel, but let's look at what the elbow is doing. The elbow is only just going to punch in as I turn here, and that will give the whiplash. And again, from here, that punch, it looks almost like a cross, but as long as my elbow is the driving force behind that, it's absolutely fine. So making sure that our call is Wing Chun. This is what's important. I like to think of, you know, you look at your hands, you see these big circles. This to me is not an area where you can defend. This is an area where mistakes can be made. If we look at what's going on with the elbows, it's a much smaller area. So let's just focus on what we're doing with our elbows. When we focus with the elbows, we will be able to control the rest of this much more effectively. When we think of our hands, well, we get to that first punch again, really. This becomes like what I tend to refer to as a comet fist, a comet punch. Yeah, you remember that now. Where, you know, I'm focusing on the hand, but the elbow is just fizzling behind. So it might look fast, it might look great. There's no power behind it. There's no connection because I've lost that structure. You know, I don't like to use the keywords like grounding and structure and alignment and all these kind of things. You just know if your Wing Chun works or not. And you know, and if it's not, then we change it because it molds to the individual. But what we need to make sure is that we understand again the shape, then we understand how to get into that shape and then how to apply the power. And if we take it in these stages like we do, it's very easy for us to tick that box or have that light bulb moment when it's actually time for that. Questions? No, it's good. All right. Listen, guys, let's have a little bit of training, a little bit of movement. Our virtual sparring. Love that. Reaction training. And again, just to remind you, normally if you're training yourself, you will decide what you're going to do. You'll decide when you're going to do it and how many of them you're going to do. That's what this is about. I'm going to take that choice away from you. So I'll decide if you're going to need to throw a bu or if you're going to need to pax out. And remember, if in doubt, get out. You've always got that choice. 3 dimensions, if I move back a little bit, you know, there might be a kick coming in. So give that some consideration. Also, guys, remember this, if I step in, you attack. Don't always wait. You're not always on the back foot. And if I move back, maybe you can kick because that is now presented as your weapon of choice. Ibrahim, if you turn, I noticed when you were doing some turns earlier, you were turning on your toes quite a few. Remember that thing that we can do, to leave it at this is not correct. But what we can do is actually lift our toes for training purposes, lift the toes completely off. So we're really confident on turning on the heels, then begin to bring the ball of the foot down a little bit, but don't press down with your toes. Like I was talking about this on Thursday. When you press down with your toes, yes, you'll have that stability, but it's going to be really difficult on your joints on the turn. So we need stability with the toes down when you want it, relaxing the toes for that mobility. So we want the ability for speed and power, but also to have that connection with the ground. Right, are we ready, everyone? Boom, have one of those. Good, excellent. So hands up, hands up. Yeah, don't stand there with your hands down, bring them somewhere. Because remember this is green, this is fine, I'm a long way away. This is orange, this is red alert. So if somebody starts to get into your space, bring your hands into play. Talk with your hands. Nick, oh, get the hand down, that's it. So whatever's coming in. Good, that's it, yep, yep. You're not gonna block and then counter once. Gonna go again, 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 again. That's it. If you don't do that counter attack or that second strike, then your opponent will. So here we go. See if you can pick up some of these big moves. Ibrahim, just there, you got into a position, did some wonderful Bumar stepping. Forget it. Forget about that. Just shake off. Try and think of this a little bit more realistic. So how would we react there? Whoa. That's fine. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's good. Can't make a Wing Chun omelette without breaking a few legs. There we go. Have that. Oh! Okay, I'm going to look for opportunities now. So, hey. So yeah, your hands were out there. I punched down the middle. You went to block. When you turned, remember, you might be vulnerable this side. You might be open. So you got your hands out. Hands out. Punch comes in. You turn to block. Now you're open on that left side of your face. So just watch this. This again is a reason why we play the wooden dummy. All right, this is worth considering. When we play with the wooden dummy, so just a tiny pause. 3 ways that we play the dummy. We learn the pattern. And even when we learn the pattern, there's basic and then there's advanced. Then we learn the drills for each section. We play the drills and then we have our kind of free-for-all, the free flow of the dummy. Moving around, doing whatever you want. Ibrahim, I've seen some of your stuff that you posted. It's great, love it. Interesting thing that we need to know is the dummy's got 3 arms, you've got 2. Reason for this, the reason why we're training, the middle arm, if you're ever training just on the middle arm on its own, is kind of representing against a kick. But if you're doing, let's say, a GAM, and you've covered 2 of the arms, you haven't covered the other one. So that's where that blind side is coming in. So that's where you might want to cover and strike, but you've forgotten about the other one. So again, every time there's always another arm that you haven't taken care of. So that's how we kind of play the dummy. So it's a good way of training this continuation and always keeping that. Remember, we're not looking for any, in these things, we're not training paranoia, don't need to live in the shadows. It's just picking up on that constant state of awareness. And I don't want you to ever do a block and counter and then celebrate and feel happy about that. Because we don't switch off. Ready? Ibrahim, have that while you, did you have a question? Right. Just attack you there for having a question. And if I come in with a barrage of strikes, if there's lots of punches, what do? Bring your, that's it. Bring your hands up like Chum Q, but then straight fire one out. Very easy for somebody to think, don't bring your hands up like that. That's silly. What I'm trying to address here is not to have that clean cut understanding, thinking that everything you do will be perfect. I think it's important that on occasion, and this is what the BUG form is about, on occasion, we put ourselves in a position or shape that is one of panic. So then we then deal on how we might want to get out of this. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Okay, a few more. Good, 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 good. Remember to move a little bit. Conservation of energy, minimum movement. Minimum movement doesn't mean just being there like a waxwork doll. Whoa. Oh, you have that. Good. Yes. Do you know why I did this one? Because you had your left leg forward in Bumar. You were in a solid left leg forward in Bumar. That's great, but if something comes around this side, it's not so comfortable. This is one reason why we have Sambok Ma. 3-point step in. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's kind of that betwixt and between, isn't it? It's where one foot is in front of the other, but we're not standing straight. We're not committed to Bumar. So allow yourself some kind of mid area when we're training. Have one of those. Yeah, good. And just 2 more now. Just do something, anything, even if you move your head out of the way. Last one now. Excellent. Good. Well done. And of course, it's never the last, never the last one, because we don't want to switch off, do we? So that's good. Any questions before we do? No, we all right? Okay. What I'm going to try then is, we'll have our hands out, and I'm going to come down the center with a straight or a cross, either hand, whichever. Could you just put your hands out for me? I'm going to punch. When I punch, I want you to turn to your left. So you're going to block with your right hand, kind of a very simple, like a turning high arm. So turning here. So if you find yourself other way, so turn to your left side. So you're blocking with your right hand. That's the one. Yeah, that's good. If you find yourself in this position, punch with that nearest arm. No. When we turn here, punch, same. That's it, yeah. So turn that way. So you're going to turn to your left. That's it. So lap and punch. That's it. Do the same technique again, please, to the same side. Same. If you're no, same. You've got, do you know, it's good. That's good. Ideally, we want to get to the outside. You know, things are not going to be ideal. So on both of these, turn that way. Turn that way. So if you're on the outside, no. If you're on the outside, punch. Because that elbow, you want to keep that. Yeah, you don't want to lift that for a fax out, because I might come underneath. Turn the same way, same block, not strike. So turn that way. Now you're on the inside of my arm. Now do the fax out with that same hand. So that's it. Don't square up, keep the turn. And the reason for that fax out is that your elbow is going to be defending. So you're either going to strike with the fax out. If I'm stepping in with this one, you might hit me with an elbow strike. If I punch, you're going to block. So I'm going to stand here. I'll show you what's going to happen. Let's say you give me a punch with your left arm, your left fist. As that punch comes in, if I find myself here, I'm going to cover or lap and punch. If you punch with your right fist, and I find myself on the inside, so I've kind of done this, wrong, I'm going to cover, not commit myself to the lap, because I don't want to damage my thumb. I'm going to cover, and I'm going to fax out. If I feel I want to step in with that, that's okay. Step in with the lightest leg. Okay, hands up. Quick fire round. So ideally try and get on the outside. Doesn't matter if you get it wrong, there is no wrong. The one thing you cannot do is change your mind. So commit yourself to the side. So go, turn, straight away. Excellent. Punch with that one. If you're on the outside, it's a punch. If you block on the inside of my arm, then it's a fax out. Hands out. If you want to use a palm, that's okay. But no. And the reason, I'm just being a bit silly on this, but the reason why I'm deliberately, what I'm trying to do is I'm taking away from you. This is what I'm trying to do. Relax 1 second. I'm trying to take away your right to decide what you're going to do, because it will be your attacker. Unless, if you haven't diffused that situation, if you haven't walked away and you haven't hit them first, because, if you know something's going to happen, we're not just going to sit around waiting. If you haven't done any of that and I come in with a strike, I will decide what you're going to need to react with. So this is what we're looking at. Added to that, though, I want to get your mind and your body working a little bit extra, a bit like kind of patting your head, rubbing your tummy, this sort of thing. I want you to define, your hands are open at the moment. So if you block on the inside, keep it open. If you block on the outside, close it. So I want to give an extra little unnecessary stress. All right, everybody, got your hands up, wider. If your hands are here, you're kind of giving me a choice. I might come around, I might come underneath here. So if they're out, I'm quite likely to strike down the middle. If I'm here trying to calm the situation, you're quite likely going to come around. So let's define that. Straight away, react. Good. Straight away. Don't change your mind. Don't block with a fist either. Saw that one. Go on, straight in, quick fire. As soon as I move. Don't step in. There's no room for you to, oh, don't step forwards with it. There's no room. If I'm genuinely punching you, I'm stepping into your space. My intention is to knock your head off. That's good. Don't step in again, though. That was the correct hand technique. All we're going to do is turn and react. Good. Quick. Good. That's good. You're not changing your mind. So that's good. Straight in, fast. 5 more of these. There's 1. 2. 3. 4. Fast reaction. Going to have 3 more now. 3. 2. 1. Excellent. Well done, everyone. Pushed. Have that. Guys, brilliant. Sore throat. I think I've got a bit of a cold. Well done, everyone. Really good. Good topic there. Nice opportunity for me to share some stuff with you. Yeah, watch this again. Make some notes. And yeah, give some consideration to the discussion on energy and how you might want to kind of use that in other techniques. You know, like when you're going through your forms, your second and third section of Sulam Tao, Chom Q, how you might kind of play it using a little bit more of that thinking of, rather than just getting to the position, like, you know, you get to wherever, rather than just getting to that position, really thinking about how we're going to put the power on, how we're going to put the power on, and where we're going to put that power on. Guys, thank you so much. It's great to see you all. Take care, and I'll see you in the next session. Thank you.